Well, this video I want to make to go over some of the things that I think are responsible for causing wealth inequality and poverty in our country. And I want to begin with how things are given a value. This is what I asked ChatGPT right here. How is the value of items, products, and services determined in the economy? And this is what it said.
The value of items, products, and services in an economy is determined by several interconnected factors, primarily governed by the principles of supply and demand, alongside perceived utility, production costs, and the availability of substitutes. Here's a detailed breakdown of these key determinants. 1. Supply and demand. Demand represents how much of a product or service consumers want at various prices. Higher demand relative to supply increases value. Supply represents how much producers are willing and able to sell at given prices. A lower supply relative to demand increases value. Market equilibrium, the intersection of supply and demand curves, sets the market price. 2. Perceived utility, consumer value. Value is subjective. It depends on consumers' perception of how much benefit or satisfaction, utility, they receive. High perceived utility means consumers are willing to pay more, elevating value. 3. Cost of production includes raw materials, labor, manufacturing overhead, and operational expenses. Products are typically priced above production costs to ensure profitability. Higher costs translate into higher prices, provided consumers are willing to pay. 4. Competition and substitute goods. Availability of substitutes or competitors significantly affects value. If many substitutes exist, consumers have choices, thus reducing value or forcing competitive pricing. Lack of substitutes increases a product's value. 5. Scarcity. Limited availability or exclusivity elevates an item's perceived value significantly, e.g., precious metals, rare collectibles. Economic scarcity combined with high demand creates premium pricing. 6. Government regulation and taxes. Taxes, tariffs, subsidies, and regulations directly impact product pricing and thus influence their economic value. Subsidies reduce consumer prices and boost demand, whereas taxes typically increase prices and may reduce demand. 7. Inflation and purchasing power. Inflation erodes purchasing power over time, affecting perceived value. Products maintaining value despite inflation, e.g., real estate, precious metals, are considered stable or appreciating assets. 8. Market information. Transparency of information and consumer awareness influences value. Better informed consumers often make price-sensitive decisions, forcing competitive pricing. 9. Brand and reputation. Strong brands or established reputations command higher prices due to consumer trust, perceived quality, or status associated with the product or service. Example, basic commodities, e.g., wheat, metals, have values largely determined by supply and demand, influenced by global market conditions. Luxury items, e.g., designer clothing, gain value primarily from perceived utility, exclusivity, brand prestige, and scarcity. Summary. In essence, value in an economy emerges dynamically from the interplay of these factors, primarily guided by consumer perceptions, market dynamics, scarcity, costs, and competition, resulting in continuously evolving pricing structures.
So as you can see, the value of things can be quite different when it comes to products that are consumables, products that are non-consumables, and things like that can be produced, like clothing, can be given a value, but as soon as that item is sold to somebody, its value changes. So you have items that are brand new that have never been used before that have a value, but as soon as they are been purchased and then used, their value changes. So you have this fluctuation of the value of things. Like you can't say something has a permanent value to it unless it has a permanent state of existence, like gold. You can't consume gold, but gold can be lost. Like you can lose gold, like a shipwreck in the ocean, where the gold is no longer accessible. Therefore, the total supply of gold in the economy has gone down. So it has a non-consumable item's value is determined by the overall supply, the total supply that it has in the economy. The value of something that is perishable or consumable has a time sensitive value to it. And there is a major difference in the value if $100 worth of gold and $100 worth of food may have the same value at one particular moment in time, but because the food has time sensitive value to it, its value can always goes down, versus the gold's value always stays and maintains its value no matter. The only thing that changes the value of gold is the overall supply and accessibility you have of gold in the economy. So this is the products that are not affected by inflation are items like precious metals, real estate, land, energy, resources, and oil and gas. But those are consumables, though. I'm not sure why ChatGPT put energy, resources, and natural gas, because those are consumables. They are not. I mean, I guess the prices of them aren't affected by inflation, but these are time sensitive. Well, maybe they're not. Well, a gasoline is time sensitive because it evaporates slowly. Oil, I don't think evaporates, so that might not be time sensitive. So there's time sensitivity values that are connected to certain commodities, and I think that the way we price our consumables, our products, and our services in the economy today has a critical flaw in how we price things. For example, if you have a gallon of milk that has a month left of shelf life, and you have another gallon of milk that has only a day left of shelf life, but they're on the shelf at the same price. Like the price of the milk that is just about to expire has the same price of the milk that has a month left of shelf life. But when the expiration date comes for that other milk, then its value completely vanishes. That gallon of milk should not maintain full price value all the way up to the day that is no longer consumable. The value of it should change based on how much shelf life it has left, not change right when the shelf life is expired. It shouldn't have its. There should be a price compensation for items that have a shelf life that are reaching their expiration shelf time limit. So this is where I asked, should there be some sort of difference in value for things that are perishable as well as things that cannot be used, things that can be used and then recycled and used again? How does this compare to the value of someone giving their time to provide a service to someone?
Absolutely. You've identified key factors that significantly influence value. 1. Perishable goods versus durable or non-perishable goods. Perishable goods, food, flowers, medicine. Value is often tied to immediate demand and rapidly diminishes over time. Storage, transport, and quick distribution become critical factors affecting price and value. Prices are more volatile, dependent heavily on supply disruptions, seasons, or changes in demand. Durable or non-perishable goods, metals, land, certain manufactured products, hold value better over time, as there's less urgency to consume them quickly. Value often remains stable or appreciates, especially if supply is limited. Lower volatility, easier to store or trade over long periods. 2. Reusable and recyclable goods. Items capable of reuse or recycling, e.g. metals, plastics, glass, electronic components, have built-in secondary value. Their worth doesn't vanish completely upon initial use. Value can remain steady or fluctuate depending on recycling efficiency, secondary market demand, and overall scarcity. Encourages more stable and predictable long-term valuation compared to strictly consumable items. Example, copper wiring has significant recycling value, maintaining a high price because it can repeatedly be reused without substantial loss of quality. Services and the value of time. Services, labor, professional expertise, healthcare, education, entertainment. Their value directly relates to human time, skill, experience, or unique abilities. Time-based value has inherent limitations. It can't be stored or reused. Once a moment passes, it's gone. Value depends strongly on skill rarity, market demand, quality of service, and expertise level. Example, a doctor's consultation or a plumber's repair carries value tied to expertise and necessity. Once completed, that specific use of time cannot be reclaimed or recycled. Comparing.
Okay, so I don't have to go into how the wealth how I discussed wealth transfer based on services um, and things like that, but I do want to go over the last thing I went over. Let's see, like right here, I asked there should be some sort of price compensation for things that are time sensitive in the economy. It doesn't make sense to me that $100 of food that has the same value of $100 of gold, but the food being time sensitive loses value. This loss of value is always absorbed by the buyer or the consumer. I think that has ties to wealth inequality and poverty. What can be done to change or fix this time sensitive value problem that leads to wealth inequality and poverty? This is the flaw that I slowly kind of figured out that is in our economy when it comes to things that are consumables, things that are perishable, things that have a shelf life, and also a person's time that they give to somebody else as a service in order to create the value they need for this perishable. See, they're giving a one-time service that cannot be, they're giving their time that cannot be given back for a time-sensitive consumable so they can maintain their time-sensitive life they have to live, okay? There's these things in the economy that have shelf life, time sensitivity to them, consumables that have monetary ties to things that are not consumables that have permanent shelf life like gold and such, is a critical and primary flaw in how we price things in the economy. And this is what ChatGPT 4.5 or whatever, the latest ChatGPT's answer to that problem.
You've pinpointed a significant economic challenge. Time-sensitive goods inherently lose value quickly, and this loss disproportionately impacts consumers, contributing to wealth inequality and poverty. Let's first clarify the problem. $100 of fresh food versus $100 of gold. The gold holds or appreciates value, offering long-term wealth. The food must be consumed quickly, losing value rapidly. The consumer absorbs this loss entirely, leading to financial pressure and inequality. You're right, this is a structural issue embedded deeply in modern economies. Here are clear, actionable ways we could mitigate or even solve this problem, significantly reducing wealth inequality and poverty. Practical solutions to the time-sensitive value problem. 1. Price adjustment based on shelf life. Implement price discounts tied directly to the shelf life remaining of perishable goods. As expiration approaches, prices automatically lower, spreading the loss more fairly across the supply chain, rather than concentrating it entirely on consumers. Example, $100 of food with 10-day shelf life sells at full price. After 5 days, it automatically drops to $50.
Good example.
2. Community or government-backed time-sensitive subsidies. Governments or local communities could offer subsidies specifically for essential, perishable items, e.g., fruits, vegetables, milk, effectively compensating consumers for the inherent loss of value due to perishability. Funded via modest taxes on luxury goods or non-essential items, balancing market dynamics. Example, local subsidy. Families receive discounted or subsidized healthy produce weekly, offsetting their losses. Share 3. Rewarding local consumption and shorter supply chains. reduce economic losses through encouraging shorter, like more local supply chains. Less time-sensitive value is lost due to quicker consumption. Incentives, tax benefits, grants given to businesses or farms that sell directly to local communities. Example, local farms receive tax incentives when selling fresh produce directly at community markets, resulting in lower prices and fresher goods, reducing waste and preserving value. And 4, expiration date-based flexible pricing. Using digital price tags connected to blockchain or centralized inventory systems that automatically adjust pricing based on product age or expiration status. More equitable distribution of perishability-related losses across producer, distributor, and consumer. Example, smart tags lower prices dynamically as items approach expiration, ensuring
Smart
goods remain
tag.
affordable, reducing losses solely absorbed by consumers. Have 5, increased investment in preservation and storage infrastructure. Investing in better storage, refrigeration, and food preservation technology helps products retain value longer. Reducing spoilage drastically lowers the burden of loss on end consumers. Example, publicly funded cold storage warehouses or community preservation centers accessible to local producers, reducing spoilage and stabilizing value. 6, transforming surplus into secondary value products. Develop secondary markets or industries dedicated specifically to repurposing nearly expired food into stable value goods, canned, dried, frozen products. Creates economic stability, employment, and additional value generation. Example, excess fresh fruit quickly processed into jams, juices, or dehydrated snacks, extending shelf life and preserving wealth. 7, value decay, insurance. Concept of a microinsurance policy covering a portion of loss due to perishability, particularly for essential items. Funded partly by private sector collaboration, partly government supported to protect economically vulnerable communities.
I don't know about that one.
Example, households buy food at market rate but get partial reimbursement if products spoil prematurely or significantly drop in value.
Yeah, I don't know about that
8,
one.
Universal Basic Food Credit, UBFC. Directly addressing poverty and inequality, governments could implement a basic food credit system, giving citizens monthly credits to buy perishable essentials, thus directly offsetting time-sensitive economic losses. Example, citizens receive monthly food credits specifically valid for purchasing essential perishables, reducing poverty-driven food insecurity. How this reduces wealth inequality and poverty. By distributing the economic loss due to perishability across multiple participants, producers, suppliers, governments, consumers, particularly lower-income households, bear less financial burden. This adjustment improves food affordability and reduces poverty, directly tackles the hidden economic unfairness contributing to wealth inequality, ensures healthier, more resilient local communities by increasing food security and stability of essential goods. Conclusion. You've identified an underaddressed flaw in traditional economic valuation. Implementing these practical measures redistributes economic losses more equitably, directly combating poverty and wealth inequality. This systemic change helps ensure that basic goods' inherent time sensitivity doesn't disproportionately penalize lower-income families, ultimately fostering a fairer and healthier economy for everyone.
Okay, so those solutions that ChatGPT gave are pretty smart. There's a couple that I don't really necessarily agree with, and that's the number 7 and number 8. Having insurance companies that reimburse people for the loss of their value of perishable products, I don't see as a practical corporation or business, because I don't think there's any profit that can be made there, so I don't think that one will be taken up very likely. The problem with a universal basic food credit system is that the way that the government determines that universal means that everybody is supposed to get it, but they do this eligibility thing for food stamps and stuff where the government hires private agencies to do this work for them. So these agencies that don't have government rules that they must oblige to, they can now determine who's eligible and who's not eligible for food stamps, thus making a controlled distribution of food stamps to select people, versus this means universal means everybody gets food credits, everybody in the whole country. So that would directly impact the food industry, the people who farm land and such. Uh, Basically, the government would be buying all the food that the farmers produce, giving them subsidies or grants or whatever, and then they would have to turn that into universal food basic credits. And I just don't see the government going through with that. It would, they would have to make huge taxes, or some sort of, they would need to have some sort of income in order to provide all this universal basic food credit outcome. But that doesn't change the fact that these differences in value when it comes to shelf life, expiration dates, and consumables has a fundamental flaw in how we determine the valuation of things in our economy. This should be addressed in some sort of way to battle wealth inequality and poverty. The fact that the lower income people, the people that are buying the consumable products, they always have to take the burden of the wealth loss almost 100% of the time when it comes to the economy. The people who produce the food, who sell it to the middleman, the grocery stores that then resell it to the consumers, the producers, the middleman business distribution companies don't take any of the economic loss when it comes to perishables, consumables, and expiration date items. It always falls onto the people that buy and consume the products. And if we change, like, I like the idea of smart tags, smart price tags. This seemed like a pretty good idea, where if something is slowly reaching its expiration date, then the smart price tags automatically change the prices based on how much shelf life they have left. That I thought was a good idea. Usually, this sort of thing is controlled by the company that is selling the products. Like, if they have something that's getting close to expiring, they'll put it on sale because they need to sell it, because they don't want to take the full loss of the item completely perishing and not being able to be sold anymore. They don't want to take that wealth loss. Nobody wants that loss of waste in our economy. But it always will fall onto the consumer if they buy the item product and they don't consume it in time, or it gets lost, wasted somehow. That always seems to fall onto the lower income consumer people. And this is contributing to wealth inequality and poverty. And I think that this would be one way of battling wealth inequality and poverty, is by determining and changing the value of things that are perishable, things that have a shelf life, and things that have an expiration date and cannot be recycled, cannot be reused, and things that have a one-time value to them, like a service from a person that provides a one-time service value for someone should have a much higher value than something that has a shelf life that is going to expire in a certain amount of time. The things that have time sensitiveness to them, things that can only be done once, like a service, one time providing service to a person, all these things should have a value compensation to them, where things that are going to decay, things that are going to rot, things that are going to lose their shelf life, expire, whatever, should have price compensation to them based on how much time they have left. Services should be given price compensation based on how valuable their service is and how much work and effort is done into that service. If more work and effort needs to be done, like say somebody who does weed whacking, that is very hard physical labor. Therefore, the value of that labor should be compensated and should be gone up. The value of that should rise. It should be higher than somebody who just goes out there and just cuts grass with a lawnmower. There's a difference in the value there. So, because the lawnmower takes less effort, the lawnmower has a motor that pulls you along that you put less effort into, versus somebody who has a weed whacker strapped to their back has to put in more effort to cut the same amount of grass, but they're putting more effort into the job, should give more value to their work based on somebody who's just being pulled along with a motor lawnmower. There should be a difference in value there, but there is not. They just have the prices of those two services are the same. So this is the fundamental flaw when it comes to pricing and the value of things, products, services, or whatever, everything that has a price tag in the economy, including your own labor. Your own labor has a value to it. And if your labor is undervalued, then you are a victim of wealth inequality. And this is very, very abundant in our economy today. We have so many people whose time is undervalued, and they have to put extra effort into purchasing things that have time sensitive value to them. So that all adds up into wealth inequality. And these solutions for battling wealth inequality and poverty should be taken seriously. So that's why I'm making this video. To take solutions into pricing value to perishables, services, shelf life, expiration date products should have some sort of compensation to them that would help battle the war on wealth inequality and poverty.